Okay, we're going to get into the focus lesson today for lesson 1-8, and we're going to be examining the shapes of different graphs, in particular histograms here that we studied yesterday, and look at what maybe the shapes of these graphs could mean of how this data is distributed. So there's four main types we're going to take a look at, and then sometimes some graphs, can look really odd for certain reasons. So really there isn't a name type for them. You can just kind of describe what's going on in them. Okay, so the first one that we're going to look at is called the normal. This is normal distribution. Sometimes we say bell curve because it looks like a bell. Okay, kind of starts and it's even, goes up in the center, and then comes back down at about the same angle as it did on this side as it was going up. So this would be an example of heart rates of elementary students. And again, normally, with this bell curve and this normal distribution, for this example on heart rates, a lot of the kids would fall into these beats per minute here, but there's always going to be some kids that have a little bit higher and it's beating a little faster. There's going to be some kids that beat a little bit lower because everybody's a little bit different on that. So it's kind of normal. This is what you expect to see in certain situations. Even like test scores. Sometimes we have the same thing in school that a lot of people test around the middle, but some are higher and maybe get perfect papers, and some struggle a little more and get a little lower. So that would be another example of maybe where you could see a bell curve. Okay. Another thing that when you're reading these graphs, you can also talk about these measures of center like median and mean and mode, and you can kind of estimate where some of these things might be. And when you have this normal bell curve, a lot of times the mean, median, and mode are very similar somewhere in here. And again, they won't be exactly the same most of the time because normal, distribution is not always exactly normal. But a lot of times you could estimate that it's going to be somewhere around in here in this middle bin. Okay. So the bell curve and normal distribution is one type. Okay. If we go over here and look, there's another type of distribution you might see. We call it uniform distribution or a plateau because it looks like a plateau. Okay, and in this case, we're taking a look at rolling some dice. Okay, rolling a die 1,000 times, and we know you have about equal odds of rolling a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6. You should roll them a similar amount of times. It won't always be exact, but due to probability, there's the same amount of chance that you have a 1 out of 6 chance to roll any of those. So if you roll it 1,000 times, you would expect to see everyone be very similar. So notice there's no bell curve here. They're all about the same because the odds are about the same that those things would happen. Okay, so that's called plateau or uniform distribution. And again, some situations you will see that type of a distribution. Okay, another one to look at here is the skewed distribution. Okay, and this is one you see quite a bit. In this case, it kind of looks like a hill. A lot of people describe it. And in this case, it kind of grows steeply, and then the hill kind of comes down to the right. And in this example, we're looking at drive time from Chicago to St. Louis. And really, cars can only go certain speeds, so it's going to take you a certain amount of time to get there. And it looks like at least 4 hours, but then now it skews, and some people took 8 hours to get there, and there could be a lot of reasons for that, traffic or something happened, to your car, so, which could make this data be a little bit skewed and make your trip a little bit longer. So driving times can vary based on several different factors. Okay. There's one other graph here to look at. It's called bimodal. And in this situation, we're looking at the heights of women and men, professional basketball players in Chicago. And notice bimodal, bi means two. So we have kind of a couple modes where it peaks a little bit higher. And again, those always won't be exactly the same. They kind of are in this case, are pretty close. But you kind of get one mode that happens the most. It dips down and comes back up again. So again, you get a couple of different modes, and there are certain situations where that could happen. So here you're talking men and women, so a lot of the women would fall into the shorter category, and the men might be up in these higher. So there's some different reasons why graphs might look like these. But again, we've got that bell curve we showed you, bimodal, skewed, plateau or uniform distribution shape. So these are things you're going to take a look at, and you're going to look at different situations and try to name them. And again, like I said earlier, there's also some situations that maybe don't look like any of these because they're just a little bit different. So sometimes you just have to kind of describe them and figure out what's going on, and there really isn't a good name for some of them. But a lot of them will fall into these 4 categories.